Okay.
Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Women Co. So Mercury is in retrograde, and Sacheen and I have been going for the last, I'm going to say 45 minutes trying to figure out this technical glitch, trying to get this going live so that you could engage and ask questions, but we're going to do what we can. And instead, you can ask questions in the comments below, and then when you comment, we'll reconnect and share. But I wanted to bring on Sacheen because she was such a pivotal part of my own healing journey. And I think that a lot of women might really benefit from the work that she does in terms of being both a divorce coach and a therapist, and especially someone who has personal and professional experience with narcissism. I want to just also preface by saying, the Women Co., this is our program for this quarter, the spring 2020 quarter. It's about narcissism. In the future, in other quarters, we're going to be tackling other topics like anxiety and depression, body image, all of the challenging things that are really difficult to get through and get past. So if this topic is not fully relevant to you right now, rest assured that the tips and the tools and the resources that we're sharing are all about personal development. It's all about how to create your greatest life. You can try them out and see how they apply. Or you can just, hang around, ask questions, engage, and then find out when the other programs go live, what might really resonate with you. We're trying to pick the topics that are both niche, but very, very deeply relevant to the women in this community. So Sacheen, welcome. We are so, so grateful that you are here and so grateful that you will be leading week 2 of the Heal from a Narcissist program. Could you give us a quick overview of your business, what it is that you do, and where it is that you are in the world?
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the funny morning. She's right. We've been doing this together going, wait, are you there? I'm not there. Are you there? I'm not there. Okay. So it's been kind of fun. So good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Sacheen Mobley, and I am currently in New York. So it's very early for Judy.
Yeah.
Very early.
Very early for technical problems. But okay.
Very early for technical problems, yes. But I hail from the Midwest originally. I got my doctorate at the University of Missouri in interpersonal and organizational communication. And my business has undergone several shifts since I started it. But currently I'm an author and divorce coach. And I like to call myself the divorce diva, bringing a little sparkle to the process that can be devastating in some respects, but also quite liberating in others. So that is where I stand at this moment. You can find me hanging out usually at home in my office when it's not so crowded. But otherwise, I am, you can find me on Facebook and in various and sundry places.
And you're a therapist as well. And this is what I loved about working with Sacheen was that, when we were working together, I was actually living abroad, and you made yourself so available when I needed it most. You really talked me through really difficult times. And if people don't know what a divorce coach is, can you explain what that is? Because it's kind of this beautiful place between a lawyer and a friend.
Yes, and I make it abundantly clear that I work within the limits of what I understand about the therapeutic nature of narcissism and personality disorders and human communication, because that's my wheelhouse. And so I use the term divorce coach mostly because what I like to offer to my clients is not only the perspective of healing from the relationship, but also the practicalities of getting through a divorce in ways that most therapy sessions don't cover. We talked about all kinds of things, from finances to the kids and to living arrangement to what do I do at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I look at myself as the stepping stone to get to the next thing that my client needs. And so I'm the bridge from one place to the next, which I think for coaches is for those of us who call ourselves coaches, that should be our mission, is to get you from point A to point B so that you can get on to point C.
Yeah. And I love what you did too, because I feel like, there is a value in therapy and talk therapy. There's a value in all sorts of different modalities. But I think that some of the things that can be missing in talk therapy are the actionable items and the actionable steps to actually get you from the emotional state to like the tangible, practical reality. And I think that you helped so much in regards to that. And there was nothing that I couldn't discuss with you. There was, also, it was just so lovely when you helped as well from like a legal standpoint. You constantly tell me, I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to reach out to my legal resources,
Right.
and I'm letting you know I'm not
Mm-hmm.
a lawyer. However, these are, the laws as I understand them, because when you're in that state and you're just in such
Mm-hmm.
a fight or flight, like panic trauma kind of state, it's
Yes.
so difficult to think about the rational things, and then to also not let your fear overtake you and think that all the stories that you've been told, all the, gaslighting and all of these other things that you've gone
Mm-hmm.
through,
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily the truth. And your ability to bring me back to like the factual basis of like, okay, so this is the state you're going back to. This is the law
Mm-hmm.
in that state. This is, like what you can rely
Yes.
upon. That was so helpful for me without me having to spend thousands of dollars on an attorney
Yes.
to do that. And I think that in a lot of the things that you'll read about attorneys is that's where the like messiness or the huge investment can balloon, is when you
Mm-hmm.
start to look at
Mm-hmm.
your divorce attorney as the therapist, like, because they'll
Yes.
sit there and they'll listen to you, but that's not what their job is. Their job is to, go to court for you or file all the legal paperwork. So if you want that
Mm-hmm.
emotional support, having someone like Sacheen is so amazing, like just having that in your corner. So I'm so grateful for you, and I just, want to like sing your praises everywhere in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I like to say I do the work the attorneys aren't really cut out to do. They're not
Mm,
really, I mean, if you want to spend $350 an hour to have them listen to you
mm.
rail about the injustices of what's happening, they will be more than happy to do
Yeah.
that for you. Not a problem.
Exactly.
But in the
Exactly.
end, they're going to say, but within the confines of my job as your attorney, all I can tell you is file this piece of paperwork, or we can argue that in court. And
Yes.
sometimes I know when I was going through my own divorce, what I needed and what I didn't have was someone to say, okay, let's actually just deal with this.
Mhm.
Let's just deal with the craziness of this
Mhm.
moment, and
Mhm.
let's figure out how to get us through this moment, because
Mhm.
it is so hard to focus on that piece of paper that the attorney wants you to sign, or the documents that you need to go find, or do you have character witnesses, and
Yeah.
when all you really want to know is, am I going to be okay?
Yes, exactly. The am I gonna be okay? And you can hear Sacheen's kids in the background, her son,
Yes, I'm
and who's on
sorry.
a play date. No, no, no. It's totally great because, like, I mean, that was a huge pivotal part as well. Like, as a mother, there's just this primal want and need to protect your children. And when you
Mm-hmm.
feel like your safety has been compromised for so long, it can be
Mm-hmm.
really challenging to know that. And Sacheen had to deal with, when it came to me, like very unique circumstances. We were living abroad,
Mm-hmm.
like our visas were expiring. There was all these other things. And so she walked me through it from the time leading up to the move back to California, to being back in California and finding a place to
Yes.
live, and like all of these other things. So I think that with your therapy background and with your personal and professional expertise, it's been such an incredible resource to have. So I highly recommend that anybody who is contemplating divorce, who's going through a divorce, who, needs that support, to talk to someone like Sacheen and, find that person who can be in your corner. And we are so excited that you're part of the Heal from a Narcissist program. I think that because in week 1, we have the yoga and the mindfulness and the intention writing exercise to really start to calm and ground and set your focus for the next 8 weeks, that when you come in, part of what I think is so helpful talking to either a divorce coach or a therapist is the normalization of what it is that you've been through if you've been with a narcissist. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that because one of the effects that happen is that you think you're crazy, and you think that, everything that you're feeling is not right, that you had this ability to understand that from, again, the personal and the professional, and then bring that to your clients. One of the things that I think is really challenging is to not know about like covert narcissism. That's a term that you might see a lot. And then also the different gradations of a personality disorder. So I wanted to see if today we could
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about that to help normalize that experience for anybody who might be going through it right now.
So thank you for bringing that up. I actually saw your email this morning about it. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
let me grab out some stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so when I'm going to get a little technical for your
Yeah.
group, everyone knows.
Totally.
In terms of the way we look at narcissism, you have at the very top, you have pathological narcissism, and this is that level of that's in the DSM when we talk about diagnosing narcissistic behavior. And
Mhm.
I'm sorry, they are
Oh.
literally just going to town in there. Um, And under pathological narcissism, you've had some research looking at narcissistic grandiosity and narcissistic vulnerability and trying to understand the pathology behind the behavior. So when you're talking about the external, kind of the overt actions. And that's where the overt and the covert comes in, because you can look at narcissism on two levels, as overt actions of expression and covert of expressions. And the research has actually, undergone some waves over the past few years, just in trying to understand some links between specific behaviors. Because what we're trying not to do is get people to think, well, every person who does X behavior is exhibiting overt expressions of pathological narcissism. No, that's not true. That's not necessarily true. But there are some correlations that are really powerful. For example, extroversion is heavily correlated with pathological narcissism. But does that mean every extrovert is a pathological narcissist? Of course not. But what we find is that the level of grandiose behavior in a narcissist is so big. Everything is so over the top. Every expression is so, nothing is a sideshow, everything's front stage. And so that's the distinction that we're looking at when we talk about overt expressions of pathological narcissism. Under that is this idea of covert narcissism that's going on as well. This is a little harder to discuss because you don't necessarily get the inner workings of people when you're dealing with them. You don't know what they're doing on the inside. But the flip side of narcissism, what we find is that people who engage in these grandiose overt expressions, they lack a level of empathy. That's kind of the covertness that you don't see. The problem a lot of people get into with narcissists is they think that grandiose behavior, that outward behavior, is linked to some amazing emotion as well. And what we find is that it actually isn't. The psychopathy is that the problem is there isn't that connection to the emotion. And so the external behavior is actually trying to get to an emotion that they just can't feel. Narcissism is just, it's a multi-headed hydra. And to try to cut off one head, you realize, oh, hey, two grew back in its place. How did that happen? I hope that made a little sense.
I mean, so, one of the things that I had been reading is, first of all, the shocking statistic of how rampant narcissism has grown. And we don't need to go into all the reasonings and all that stuff. But I think that the other thing is to understand that, let's underscore that they don't have the capacity for empathy, but they can definitely make it seem like they can, which I think is what is the part of the crazy making, is that you think that this person is able to understand, they have a good heart, they're demonstrative in that way. But when you're really hurting, that level of empathy is not there. That level of understanding. I mean, I have, personal experiences where I was really just looking at this person thinking, what is wrong right now that this person is smiling in this situation? It's just such a mismatch of the situation and the response. So I think that was huge. And the other thing is that the statistics said that on average, a narcissist goes into a partnership with at least 5 people. So that's 5 people that are dramatically impacted in negative ways by this relationship. And in fact, a former neuro mapping expert that I was speaking with had said that he led a cohort of helping women who, at least there were all the women in the group, but I think there were at least 5 of them that were impacted by the very same narcissist. So I think that, it just goes to show that the impact can be so great and severe. And can you just talk a moment about, the impact that this has, because it's so hard to identify. So I think that, feeling like you're crazy, loss of self-confidence, all of those things. What are some of the typical things that someone who's been in a narcissistic relationship might experience and feel?
So one of the big ones is a hyper awareness. All of a sudden, or not even all of a sudden, I guess is the wrong way to start that sentence, because you've been in a relationship with a narcissist who has thrown you off balance. And part of the game of narcissist is to keep you off balance. And so what I find is that, and I'll speak from the perspective of women because that's usually who I work with, they become hypersensitive to the environment. They are hyper aware of emotions of other people to the point where sometimes they misread the emotions of other people, assuming that because they've been trained. The value of a narcissist is training the people to react a certain way.
Oh yes.
And in that training, it leaves a lasting impact that has to be worked through, so that in the next relationship, you find yourself looking at certain behaviors, looking for certain behaviors and
Yeah.
seeing that behavior through this certain lens.
Right.
You become
Right.
hyper aware of everything that you were because you had to be. You
Yes.
had to be aware, because when you're in the relationship with a narcissist, your best defense is to be on the offense, to look for the explosion before it gets there.
Yes.
Out of the relationship, you become so the first thing I see is a hyper awareness. Can you give me just 1 second?
Yes. Yes.
It's a little loud. Thank you. Just a minute.
So as Sacheen was talking about the hyper awareness and the hyper vigilance, excuse me. Excuse me. I think that one of the things that is really important is to understand that the pattern, like the PTSD, if we don't process through it, it will carry on. And, I'm speaking again firsthand that I've had that experience of going through, even to the point that getting text messages and whatnot immediately creates this visceral response in my body where I am going into fight or flight. I'm shivering on the inside. I'm finding it difficult to focus on anything else, like all of these responses that need to be dealt with. And that's why, after Sacheen, we're going to go into Samuel Whiting's Wim Hof breathwork exercises and practices, because that's going to help move you out of the traumatic sympathetic into the rest and digest parasympathetic state. And then why we've designed it so that also we have other resources on hand, experts who are not going to be featured in this iteration of the live program, but who are on our roster to provide additional support if necessary. So one of them is a love and dating coach, a relationship coach, so that she can help you guide you through, if you are looking to, move into the next relationship, how that you can actually do that with like health and ease and not carrying around that baggage. So we'll turn back over to Sacheen.
Okay, thank you. So the hyper awareness. The second thing that I told them to go outside. We'll see.
It's okay.
It's just a little cold here, so unfortunately, it's colder than we thought it would be, or else they would be outside. So the other thing that comes up is this restlessness I find in my clients and it's not restlessness of, I'm just restless. I want to go do something. It's waiting for the shoe to drop. But they carry that with them for such a long time because they're constantly like, okay, when's the next thing? Where's the next fire? They're always looking. So that hyper awareness, that almost vigilance leads their body into a constant restless state. They're constantly, and I always recommend yoga and journaling and things of that nature to kind of bring them down, bring down the the cortex is just flowing because they're constantly restless, like they can't sit still, they don't know what to do. Because when you live in a state of hyper awareness all the time, your body is always poised and ready for flight. When you're no longer in that state, that energy still comes up until you are able to recognize it for, okay, I'm not really wanting to go do anything. I'm just so used to having to be ready. And so there's a sense of restlessness that permeates a lot of their lives post relationship. So those are the two big ones that I see a lot. And then the third one I think is really important that doesn't get talked about as much is this kind of numbing effect. When you swing down from the high of being with a narcissist, sometimes it's very easy to check out. And I heard you mention PTSD. And I think it's important to recognize that when you've been hypersensitive, the natural thing is to not want to feel anything. It's just the natural desire to go, I just don't want to feel anything. If I cannot feel anything, I also won't feel the pain of what's happening. And so I find that especially for women, they begin to carry it in their bodies. They don't emote anymore. They lock it all into their bodies, and they become sick and physically ill, and their hair falls out, and they get cramps in weird places, and they have panic attacks. And so, and it's the numbing of the emotion, because again, when you've been hypervigilant for so long, the natural instinct is just not going to feel anything anymore.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And I know that, Charlotte has experienced a lot of the physical symptomology of this because she's had to deal with it with family members and narcissistic relationships, as well as former partners. So, and colleagues, she worked in finance for a while. So she was around that energy a lot, and then experienced like things that were just so hard to diagnose, like the chronic fatigue and, all of these kinds of things. And I think that our brains do get wired, And I
Yeah.
know, like, I was just having dinner with a friend yesterday. Her parents are also narcissists. And she was
Mm-hmm.
talking about how when her mom would send her these emails that, were pages and pages of basically like berating and
Mm-hmm.
criticism, that even though she
Mm-hmm.
knew that that's what was coming, she couldn't help but open the email. And it's like, it's
Right.
this dopamine, like fix that you're getting. I mean, like, I know it well. I know, like, my rational brain tells me I should save this message for later when I'm in a calmer space, when I'm not, busy doing this,
Right.
that. And then
Right.
it's like, almost like you can't help it. So
Right.
yeah, I think
Yes.
yes. So so much of this program is designed to help you. I think that the other thing about narcissism is, like, they know your soft spots. They know your
Oh, yes.
tender and vulnerable spots, because they
Oh, yes.
know they're intelligent. They're generally very smart, and can be
Mm-hmm.
very outwardly charming. So
Mm-hmm.
it can feel like they've just gone for, the bullseye every single time, pushing on those
Mm-hmm.
triggers. And so there are
Mm-hmm.
two ways to
Mm-hmm.
look at it. Is that it's like you were saying, that there could be gifts that come through these experiences. And one of them can be that all of a sudden your vulnerabilities have been magnified by someone else. So they've done the homework for you, and they've helped you
Yes.
find all of the soft spots that you
Yes.
can look at and work on and heal, which is amazing. I think the other part is that your part in this program and all of the other experts is to help design it so that you can remove the triggers as well. Because if you move that button, there's nothing else that they can push. And,
Exactly.
so can you speak a little bit to during your week's module that's going to be in week
Mm-hmm.
2, what
Mm-hmm.
do you hope that the women are going to be able to walk away with after they, take in what you have to say?
My hope and my prayer and my want is that I will leave you with a way to move that button. I will
Mm,
leave you with not even to move that button, to open that button up, disconnect the
mm,
electricity to the
mm,
button.
mm. I like that.
And then, yeah, like open up the button and dismantle it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to not let something else come in and replace that button, which
Yeah.
happens a lot, unfortunately. Once we leave a relationship of that nature, it's very easy to fall into other patterns with other people, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can dismantle that button, if we
Yes.
can say, okay, we're not gonna
Yeah.
move it. We're
Yeah.
gonna open it up, take out all of the working parts. And
Mm.
that way, if somebody steps on it, it'll be like, what are you doing? Like, that has no power here. You have no power there. That button does not work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Sorry,
love
but
that.
that button just does not work. So you can't push that button because it doesn't work.
I
And
love that.
I hope, yeah, I hope that that's what you all walk away with, was the feeling of,
Mm.
I don't have that button, but you're
Mm.
welcome to stand there and
Mm.
stomp on it to your heart's.
Mm. Yeah. And I think that that's so wonderful. And it's funny because I was just taking a shower yesterday. I came to LA for a work meeting, and my family lives in LA. So I came and stayed with my parents. And this is where my daughter and I stayed when we first got back
Mm-hmm,
from
mm-hmm,
Taiwan. So I had this moment in the shower. They have this, like, really nice, like, glass shower, and Wilder really likes to play in it. And
mm-hmm,
so when I was in it, it reminded me of the time when we came back, and how I would just stand in that shower and feel terrified, like,
mm-hmm,
just terrified of the unknown, of what rage
mm-hmm,
I could invoke, because that's another
mm-hmm,
symptom of that unexpected rage, of
mm-hmm,
all the threats, whether they would come to fruition, of
mm-hmm.
all these things. And so um, I had this moment, and it just shows you, like, how you can remove and dismantle the button, where I realized, wait a minute. I cannot believe that I stood in this shower and was so terrified by this person who made me, like, who was a bully essentially, and
Mhm,
had me believing all of these lies, and that I was
mhm,
that afraid. And
mhm,
and then, like, I was just looking at it, and from a different perspective of then
mhm,
being angry, like, how could that, like, how could I have gone, not how could I have gotten into that situation necessarily, but, like, how could I have let a person create that much fear
mhm,
within
mhm,
myself that
mhm.
was unjustified in the end? Or, like, and not like I'm the victim, like, how could I have
Right,
let
right.
that, but just kind of having it boggle my mind that I was at that place, and that now I
Mm-hmm.
can view it instead of fear and terror, as viewing it with anger, which is on the emotional scale, like a higher
Yes.
level. And then
Yes.
as I move through the anger, I'm going to get to a point
Mm-hmm.
where I realize like, oh, I was just celebrating because I'm like, I made progress. I got to the point of anger.
Yes.
Then I can get to the point of like boredom. And then I can get to the
Mm-hmm.
point of like joy. And like, one
Mm-hmm.
of the recommendations
Joy.
was, yeah,
Yes.
sending the light and love. And like, I'm trying to speak to the other person from the soul of it. And that's definitely down the line. Like, and I
Right.
know that I've gotten there at certain times. I'm going to get there. I can even look back at, times that we all spent together and have like, if a song comes on, have a pleasant memory about it. So I know that
Mm-hmm.
that's moving
Mm-hmm.
forward, but
Oh, yeah.
like, I think that just being able to know how to dismantle the triggers so that they're not there anymore, so that you can watch someone else stomp on the button and it's not a big deal. And then, the way that our program is structured is to bring you from that fear and terror to moving into the tools and the tips that you need to rewire your mind and understand where you are, and then
Mm-hmm.
keep facilitating that process until you can get to a point of joy, until you can get to a point of feeling really good
Yes.
in yourself and in your life. So is there anything else that you want to add as we close this amazing session?
um, well, when we get into next week, I have the chart about how to move through your emotions, and it's fear, grief, anger, joy. And it's so hard to think that you're going to get to joy, right? It's so, when you're in the moment, it's so hard to go, am I going to one day get to the place where I just truly believe that I am entitled to be happy? And so I just want to say to anyone out there who listens to this and who's engaging in this amazing program, I'm so excited to be a part of it. I'm so excited that you're doing it. Yes, you are in fact entitled, not just you have the right to be, but when we say that we have a sense of entitlement to something, we usually think of that as a negative thing. But I want to reframe that and say you are entitled to joy in all aspects of your life. And the first step to that is recognizing that you are not that person who let something happen to you. You are a person who fell for someone who did something to you.
Yeah.
And that means that you actually get to be the person who heals from that and is entitled to feel joy after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's such a great reminder. What you're feeling right now is not how it's always going to be. You're going to get to another side. And I think that it can feel like when you're in the beginning throes of it, that this is always how it's going to be. You'll always have to deal with these challenges. One of the things that Sacheen said when I was reaching out to her to become an expert in this program was that it's the same. You're going to get the same kind of crazy thrown at you potentially if you have to continue to have a relationship with a narcissist. Like, let's say you have to co-parent with them or whatever it is. And instead of feeling like you're like, oh my God, like, oh, it's a new kind of crazy. You were telling me like, same kind of crazy, same like MO. You just have a different approach to it, a different understanding, a different everything. So I think that like changing what you can control, changing your inner landscape is going to be so huge. And absolutely, you deserve joy. We deserve joy. Like all of us. And that's why, we created this program. So I'm so grateful. I'm going to put Sacheen's information down below so you can contact her. And if you have any follow-up questions, because we did this and we couldn't do it live with engagement and interaction, I believe that everything is always working out for us. So I'm sure there's a reason that it happened this way. So, please do reach out to us, connect with us. We are genuinely here because we want to support. I hope that energy and that resonance comes across, that we created this because we've been where you are and we want to help you move through this. And, the amount of women, I mean, you're not alone. Like, you are not alone.
Not at all.
So, no. So thank you so much for your time. And we are so excited to kick off this program. It starts on February 14th, and Sacheen will be our expert in week 2. So we really hope that you get a chance to meet with her. If you don't want to participate in the program, if that's not speaking to you, but you do want to reach out to her for her services, I will include her contact information so that you can do that, because she's just incredible. Do you actually want to drop your website just in case this is going to show up in other places where I can't comment below?
Actually, my website's under construction.
Okay.
That's a whole story of having to fire my web guy.
Okay.
So that's off the table. But I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook at Dr. Sacheen Mobley. It's just my name will get you there.
And it's Sacheen. So
That is
thank you
correct.
so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
And let me